and welcome to the Annual Shareholders Meeting of Chino Commercial Bancorp for 2021. My name is Gigi Verner, and I work in the Chino branch of the bank. Because of restrictions associated with the COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting is being held virtually rather than in person. The business portion of this meeting is being conducted live from our offices in Chino, California. The presentation of the company's performance for 2020 was pre-recorded a few days ago in front of a live audience of bank employees. On your screen, you should have a small box for live chat. This is available for any participant to make a comment or ask a question. We will collect any questions that may come up and address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's shareholder meeting. Today's meeting is being recorded, and if you would like to watch it again or share it with a friend, it will be available for later viewing on the bank's webpage under the Investor Relations tab. Now I would like to introduce Mr. Dan Bowman, President and CEO of Chino Commercial Bank and Chino Commercial Bancorp.
Thank you, Gigi. My name is Dan Bowman. I'm President and CEO of Chino Commercial Bank, and welcome to the Annual Shareholders Meeting. So the objective for this evening is really to elect the Board of Directors for another year, to ratify the appointment of the bank's auditors, report on the activities of the bank over the last year, and then conduct any other business that comes before. And then at the very end, we'll answer any questions that come up anybody might have. Start off by turning to Bernie Wolfswinkel. Bernie has been our chairman of the board since we started organizing the bank 22 years ago. And we have started every board meeting, we've started every shareholders meeting, we've started every audit committee meeting, every director's loan committee with prayer. And Bernie had 3 rules when I asked him to become chairman of the board. And his rule was, we're going to start on time, we're going to start with prayer, and at the end of the meeting, we're all going to be talking to each other. And if we're not talking to each other, I'm not going to end the meeting until we are. We've followed those rules for 22 years, and we've had tremendous success. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Bernie Wolfswinkel.
Greetings. My name is Bernie Wolfswinkel. I'm chairman of the bank board, Chino Commercial Bank. I am going to just give you a little history about the bank instead of giving you a lot of figures. 22 years ago, Dan Bowman and myself were both in the Chino Kiwanis Club. And one day after the meeting, Dan met me outside. Some of you people have heard this story before, but I'm kind of proud of it. He said, Bernie, I would like to talk to you. And I said, well, thank you. What do you need? What did I do, Dan? He says, you didn't do anything. It's what I want you to do. He says, I'm thinking about starting a new bank, and I would like to have you be as one of my board members. I said, well, I'm going to have to think about that. But we had to sell $4.5 million worth of shares at $10 a share before they would charter the bank. Anyway, that's been history, and I've been on the board now for 22 years. If you would please pray with me and bow your heads. At this time, I'm going to offer a prayer. Father, we come to you this evening hour thanking you for all the benefits that you have done for the bank. We know that we had to come to you and ask you for some terrible, terrible requests, Father, because we've been through some trying times, but you've always been in our presence. There has never been a time that we didn't feel that you were listening to us as we were praying. I want you to be with all the shareholders, Father. Watch over each and every one of them. Be with the people that we've lost this past year due to the coronavirus. There are some of them that have died and passed away and have gone to heaven with you. Now be with each and every one of the board members and their families. Watch over them. Be protective of them, Father.
Thank you, Bernie. Now I'd like to take a minute and introduce your board of directors. Many of you already know the board. All but 2 of them have been board members since we organized the bank 22 years ago. Of course, Dan Bowman, I think you already met me. Bernie Wolfswinkel, our chairman. Richard Malooly. Richard is retired now. He was the chairman or the CEO of Remax 100 Realty in Diamond Bar. great guy, still very active. Linda Cooper, president of Inland Empire Escrow Corporation in Chino. Jeanette Young is our corporate secretary, and Jeanette is a realtor. She still continues to be active in the real estate community with King Realty Group. Julio Cardenas is a new director with the bank. Julio's been with us a few years, and he is the president and CEO of Century 21 King Realtors in Rancho Cucamonga. Julio's a great guy, and he's the chairman of our audit committee. Tom Woodbury is a physician in Rancho Cucamonga, and Tom has been a director of the bank since its inception 22 years ago. And then finally, Ken McIlvaney is a retired insurance executive, and Ken is our newest board member. He's been on the board now for about a year, and he's a great guy. He's very knowledgeable, and he really contributes quite a bit. I'd like to take the time and introduce all of the bank's staff, but we're up to, I think it's 51 employees now, and that would take most of our evening just to introduce everyone. But let me sum it up by saying we have got a great group of people we work with. These are dedicated, hardworking, these are wonderful people, and they're really making a difference, and I appreciate them so much. Now, for tonight's meeting, Julio Cardenas will be conducting the business portion of our meeting, and Carol Murdahl will be serving as Inspector of Elections. We also have representatives tonight from Stewart Moore Staub. They are the bank's corporate attorneys, and they're participating virtually in this meeting, and representatives from Eide Bailly, the bank's financial auditors. So hopefully everyone has had an opportunity to look over your annual report. Now this year we sent out both the hard copy annual report, the paper version, is we've gotten for 20 years, but we also sent it out virtually. And we're in a new era when electronic communication is easier, faster, more reliable. You can archive it. It's really a big improvement. So about 25% of our shareholders this year agreed to communicate electronically. We really appreciate that. For many others, though, they still like the good old-fashioned hard copy, and we've provided those. If for some reason you didn't get it, or maybe you mislaid it, or you lent it to somebody and you need another one, you can go onto our website, and the annual report, the proxy statement, and the proxy voting card are all there to be reviewed or downloaded or printed or whatever you want to do. So if you'd like to get one or review it again, go onto our website. So with that, I'd like to turn it back to Julio Cardenas and Carol Murdahl to conduct the business portion of this meeting. Thank you.
Good evening. This meeting is being held pursuant to the call of the Board of Directors and the legal notice of the annual meeting dated April 20th, 2021. May I hear a motion to waive the reading of the legal notice and to attach the Secretary's certificate to the minutes of this meeting?
So moved.
May I please have a second to that motion?
I second the motion.
The motion has been moved and seconded that the reading of the legal notice be waived and that the Secretary certificate be annexed to the minutes of this meeting. All in favor of this motion signify by saying A.
Aye.
All opposed signify by saying nay. The motion is carried. May I hear a motion to waive the reading of the minutes of the last annual shareholders meeting?
So moved.
May I please have a second to that motion?
I second the motion.
The motion has been moved and seconded that the reading of the minutes of the last shareholders meeting be waived. All in favor of this motion signify by saying yea.
Yay. Yay.
All opposed signify by saying nay. The motion is carried. Certificate of mailing notice of meeting. A certificate of mailing showing that the notice of the annual meeting and proxy statement was properly mailed has been filed and will be annexed to the minutes of this meeting. The board has appointed Carol Murdahl to serve as the Inspector of Election to count the votes, determine the validity of proxies, and decide on all questions and challenges arising in connection with the election. Will the Inspector of Election now give the quorum report?
Of the 2,230,808 shares of the company's common stock outstanding as of March 30th, 2021, the recording date for this meeting, 1,558,262 shares, which is 69.85%, are represented in person or by proxy.
Thank you, Ms. Murdahl. Since 1,115,405 shares are necessary for a quorum and 1,558,262 are represented, a quorum is present. Therefore, this meeting is duly organized and we can proceed with conducting business. As you know, there are two legal actions to be taken at this evening's annual meeting of shareholders: the election of the company's board of directors and the ratification of appointment of independent auditors. Since the company has not received any notices of intention to nominate directors pursuant to the company's bylaws, cumulative voting will not be necessary. Therefore, we will dispense with any explanation of cumulative voting. I would like to announce that the following 8 candidates have been nominated for election to the Board of Directors to serve until the next annual meeting of shareholders and until their successors are elected and have qualified. Dan H. Bowman, Julio Cardenas, Linda Cooper, Kenneth McIlvaney, Bernard J. Wolfswinkel, Thomas A. Woodbury, Richard G. Malooly, Jeanette L. Young. I would like to entertain a motion to elect management's slate of directors nominees. Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
May I please have a second to that motion?
I second the motion.
All in favor of this motion signify by saying yea.
Yay.
All opposed signify by saying nay. The motion has been carried. As you probably know, your proxy card gives you the ability to vote against individual candidates, in addition to being able to vote in favor of or against the whole slate of nominees. As a result, different nominees may have different numbers of votes. Now, I would like to call on the inspector again for the official results of the voting. Ms. Murdahl, could you please tell me the least number of shares voted, authority given, with respect to any of the nominees for director?
1,445,851, or 64.81%, is the least number of votes for any candidate.
And the total number voted authority withheld?
3,302.
Thank you. Management's 8 candidates have officially been re-elected to serve as directors for another year. The second item of business is the ratification of appointment of independent auditors. As indicated in the proxy statement, this proposal is not legally required, but the board has chosen to voluntarily give the shareholders the opportunity to ratify or not ratify the audit committee's appointment of the independent auditors for the upcoming year. The audit committee still has to be the body that makes the ultimate decision about the selection of the company's independent auditors, but is interested in the opinion of the shareholders concerning its decision. May I have a motion to ratify the appointment of E.D. Bailey, LLP, as the company's independent auditors for 2021?
So moved.
May I please have a second to that motion?
I second the motion.
All in favor of this motion signify by saying yea.
Yay.
All opposed signify by saying nay. The motion has been carried by voice vote. Now I would like to call on the inspector again for the official results of the voting. Ms. Myrtle, can you tell me the number of shares voted for against this approval?
There were 1,557,782 for the proposal and 10 against.
And the number abstaining?
There were 470 abstaining.
And can you also tell me the percentage of the shares represented and voting that were voted in favor of this proposal?
The percentage of shares voting in favor of the proposal was 69.83%.
Thank you. This proposal has been approved. Will the Inspector of Election please file your certificate of voting results when completed with the Secretary?
Yes.
That concludes the formal business portion of the meeting. I would now like to call on Dan Bowman for his report of performance of the bank.
Julio, and thank you, Carol, for taking care of that portion. That was tremendous. So now I want to take a minute and look back at 2020, last year, and review the bank's performance and the year in review. You know, I've done this for about 20 years where I do the year in review, and it's always kind of interesting and different. So 2020, that's a mouthful. I don't know how I'm going to pack it all into the time that we have here tonight. Fair to say that if many people were to rate 2020 like you rate a purchase online, it would get a 1 star. Disappointed, would not recommend, verified experience. 2020 was a tough year in so many different ways. To start off, Mary Ann from Gilligan's Island passed away. You know, they surveyed a whole bunch of men and said, which would you rather have a date with, Mary Ann or Ginger? You know, Ginger was the beautiful one. And everyone was Mary Ann. So I don't know what that tells you. But anyway, Dawn Wells, 82 years old, she passed away from COVID in 2020. Yeah, it's too bad. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Supreme Court Justice, the second female Supreme Court Justice and the first Jewish American female Supreme Court Justice. She obviously had a very significant amount of influence on the court. She was more liberal in her orientation, but very well respected. And she passed this year at 87. Alex Trebek passed away at 80 years old. This guy, he's got a ton of hair. It's just not fair. You know, Jeopardy was 36 seasons. Gilligan's Island had 3 seasons. Jeopardy, but they're not going to be playing reruns of Jeopardy for a jillion years. So, at any rate, he passed this year at 80 years old. Unfortunately, Kobe Bryant and his daughter passed this year as part of a helicopter crash with 7 other people. And a real tragedy. He's very young and had just retired and finally starting to get some time to himself, and his life was cut short. Eddie Van Halen. He didn't look like that when he passed. Arguably one of the greatest rock guitar players of all time. Gigi saw him when he was, who? Eddie and the Cookies. So she's from New Jersey, and apparently Eddie and the Cookies performed there at some point. Now, he must have been about 12 years old at that time. But anyhow, Eddie Van Halen passed away this year at 65 from cancer. Of course, James Bond, Sean Connery, arguably the best 007 of all of the 007s. You know, he's the guy that really coined the phrase Bond, James Bond. I try to do that. It doesn't work as well. Bowman, Dan Bowman. It helps if I have a gun. Yes, he passed at 90. No causes, he was just worn out. So, little Richard passed away this year at 87, Tutti Frutti, all Rudy, or whatever that is. So that was one of his songs. Now that'll be going through your mind for a long time. Just a little gift from me. And Helen Reddy passed away at 78 this past year. And you see these pictures, and in my mind, she's still that young. I don't know. I didn't change. I didn't change. This past year, 2020, I think a lot of us got a refresher in biochemistry, biology, viruses, how they work, SARS virus, COVID number 2, COVID number 5, COVID number 19, and how interconnected countries are. The adjoining country, if they're not taking care of business, that might come over into your country. And of course, this disease spread worldwide and killed literally millions of people. And equally importantly, disrupted worldwide economy. And we're still today, in 2021, not over this yet. And I wouldn't be surprised if in 2022 there's still a residual from the COVID-19 virus. In March 19th of 2020, the governor in California said we're going to shut down the economy for 2 weeks to flatten the curve. That was the idea. And I remember it was, we had a board meeting, March 19, and Tom Woodbury was looking at his phone. He says, oh my gosh, the governor has shut down all non-essential businesses in the state. And of course, there's a discussion, what is essential, what's not essential, how long is this going to be, that kind of thing. Well, here we are more than a year later, and many businesses are still closed. Many businesses will never reopen. I kind of wonder if I'll ever go to the gym again. Maybe not. So immediately when we quarantined at home to flatten the curve, everybody ran out and bought toilet paper. Doesn't that make sense? I think some people thought this was an intestinal thing. I don't know. I don't get it. Costco got to the point they were rationing it. You could only buy one package at a time, which meant you had to keep going back to the car, It was hard. And then people like me, first I made fun of them. I said, oh, those silly people. And then I thought, maybe they know something I don't. Maybe I should go get some. And when I got there was nothing left. Those Clorox wipes, those used to be kind of cool. Those became gold, If you could get a $10 bill or you could get a Clorox wipe, they'd take the Clorox wipe every time. Yeah. Yeah, suddenly everybody was forced to go home. And even though, I think most of us would say, gosh, I get to go home for 2 weeks. Somehow when the government tells you have to go home, I don't want to go home, I want to stay here. It's like getting kicked out of school. Then you want to go to school. That's what I've heard. Yeah, everyone on earth, go to your room now. Nurse Ratched. So Mattel, not to be stopped by this, came out with the new Quarantine Barbie, Will I Ever Wear Jeans Again edition. Includes an extra pair of stretchy pants. I'm trying to read this from far away. Jeans from the Gap, extra size up. Pizza with ranch dressing, and you can see she's got stains all over her top. Dreyer's ice cream and Mother's animal cookies. Those things are really good. And bra not included. Not to be outdone, Barbie's friend Ken, or in this case Zoom Ken, has the Quarantine Barbie edition. He has a business attire, of course, from the waist up, and from the waist down he's wearing boxer shorts. He's got 3 Apple products, iPad, iPhone, and MacBook Pro. He's got drinks from Starbucks, the drive-through, the pickup. And then Dove antiperspirant. What is Dove antiperspirant? What is that? I don't know what that is. And then finally, Barbie, the non-essential worker edition, complete with the wine o'clock t-shirt here. Any time of day, it's 5 o'clock someplace, according to non-essential worker Barbie. A lot of us came to appreciate our hairstylist or our barber. When it got long, a lot of folks grew to rely on family members, and some did a good job, and some you could tell. The price was right, though, and, you got hair all over the place, but that's okay. It was all right. When it came to, homeschooling our kids, I think a lot of parents felt kind of like this picture here on day one. We're Mary Poppins. We're practically perfect in every way. By about day 3, it was not as good. It was tough for them. But, the kids, they overwhelm us. They've got more energy. There's more of them. They can get into more mischief, and it just kind of messed you up. And things started to slip. I think for a lot of kids, grooming and hygiene was a secondary item. And a lot of parents just wondered if kids were ever going to go back to school. That's a picture of Trish. That's not true. That's not Trish. No. Our kids are grown up and they're out of here. They got their own troubles. Face masks became somewhat controversial, as we can see here. People are very vocal on this topic. Some really think face masks are important. Some really think face masks are a violation of their right to breathe. And economists love charts, and this one shows the trend and the direction of the quarantine activity. As we can see, bra activity dropped off significantly. Coffee usage remained high. Car usage, that dropped off quite a bit. Internet was strong. We like that. Shaving, no, they stopped shaving. Shaving and bras seemed to go out the window. Alcohol usage spiked quite a bit, and that's true. We bank a number of liquor stores, and they did well during this time. Yeah, toilet paper was astronomical there for a while. I think it was mostly buying, not as much using, but buying, kind of hoarding it. Sweatpants, of course, they're very popular. And then the last one, of course, is mask usage. And as we see, that's a little random there. We're not sure about how that trend worked, but anyway. We had an election in 2020, a hotly contested election. There was fear and loathing being promoted on both sides. Doesn't matter which way you vote, you're going to die anyway. Nah, it was kind of overly dramatic. That kind of, wash your hands well after a nasty election. And, of course, Back to the Future. For you young people, there was a movie, Back to the Future, with Marty McFly and Doc Brown, where he's saying, whatever happens, don't ever go back to 2020. So, with all of that going on in 2020, how did that affect our bank? I must admit, as we started to go into this, and I was looking at the idea of closing down a number of our customers or causing to be non-essential, I thought was going to be economically disastrous for many of them, and it didn't turn out to be so much. Of course, here we can see flatten the curve, flatten small businesses. But what happened was the government put together the PPP loan program administered through the SBA, and it allowed businesses to really qualify based upon an application. There was very little actual loan underwriting going on, And as a net result, based upon tax returns, an awful lot of folks qualified for these loans, both tax returns as well as payroll records. And in our particular case, we can see how our total assets grew through 2019. Well, in 2020, it increased disproportionately, in fact, up 37%, which was more than we had budgeted for the year. It was really a tremendous surge in total asset growth. Similarly, if we look at deposit growth, also went from $182 million to $261 million, or 43% increase in 2020. Very significant. Loans, as we can imagine, as I'm talking about this loan production, and by the way, our bankers generated in the past 12 months over 600 PPP loans to help small businesses. It really has been a tremendous effort on the part of everyone involved. Well, in 2020, loan growth went from 144 to 196, or a total of 36% increase. Very significant. But equally importantly, of course, are the credit metrics. It doesn't help to put on a whole bunch of loans if they're all going to go bad on you. Well, at fiscal year end, we had not only no credit losses, but $118,000 that we had collected that was previously charged off, that we were able to collect back. So we had a negative credit loss. Loan delinquency was 0 on 12/31. Our non-accruals, that $120,000, that's one loan. And it's actually down to $105,000. And the borrower continues to make payments as agreed. OREO, or bank-owned real estate, is 0. We don't have any foreclosures in process. We don't have any foreclosed properties that we own. The allocation for loan loss reserve, that's the ALLL, and $3.7 million in that as a support for possible future losses. And that's about 1.67, or almost 1.7% of our total loans. That's a fairly strong number. It's more than adequate to protect the bank against any losses we could foresee. If we look at total revenue in 2020, it jumped up also, going from 11.4 to 11.9. Interest expenses uniquely, in 2019, interest rates were moving higher. You may recall that, and we were all ready for things to begin to ramp up. And of course, borrowers are shopping interest rates on deposits and that sort of thing. In 2020, interest rates dropped. Federal Reserve dropped the Fed funds benchmark rate down to 10 basis points, really. And non-interest expenses, that's rent and lights and air conditioning and everything that goes involved with running the bank except for interest. That actually decreased slightly in 2020 as compared with 2019. So we had a reduction in interest rate and we had a reduction in non-interest expenses. Non-interest expenses as a percentage of ending total assets, that's an important ratio. Generally speaking, if you're around 2.5, 2.75, something like that, it's fairly healthy for a community bank. And as we can see, in 2019, we're at 2.75%. It was very respectable amongst our peers. Well, in 2020, that number dropped down to 2.0%. And if we look at this, it's actually gone down a little bit since then. That's significant for a small community bank. I can't even describe, we weren't planning on things improving that much. In terms of net earnings, the bank posted another record year at $2.6 million, up from $2.5 the previous year. Not the 37% increase that we saw in some of the other slides, but still continues to set record high levels of earnings for our shareholders. If we look at basic and diluted earnings per share, we went from $1.14 per share to $1.18 per share, again setting a new record in earnings per share. Now, as we look at the first quarter of 2021, these slides are going to compare the first quarter, 2021, with the first quarter of 2020, and then first quarter 19, etc. So if we look at deposits, we can see that the first quarter of 2021 was an all-time record. at $282 million, and that's a 51% increase over the same quarter end the previous year. So, we're in a business of steady growth, consistent accretion. Something like a 50% increase is very significant. If we look at total loans, they increased from $145 million to $203 million, or 40% increase. If we look at revenue, again, posting an all-time high level of $3.3 million in the first quarter of 2020. That's up 17% over the prior year. If we look at total expenses, first quarter of 21 versus first quarter of 20, it's an increase, but it's a much more shallow increase, 4.3% during that last 12-month period. Consolidated net after-tax profit at the holding company set an all-time record in the first quarter of $838,000, up from $613,000 the prior year, or a 27% increase on net after-tax earnings. So in total, as we look at the financial metrics of the bank in 2020, it's been an excellent year. We really have had just a tremendous year, and we've got a lot to be thankful for. The conditions in the bank are strong. Throughout this entire pandemic, we were able to keep all of the bank branches open with regular hours and regular days. We didn't close any branches. We did close the Chino branch, I think, 1 or 2 days while we had to disinfect because we had an outbreak. At one time, we had 22 of our 50 employees not at work, either working from home or out sick. And for those who were still here, it was tough, and they had to work very hard to continue to serve our customers and take care of business. So we owe them a tremendous debt of gratitude. A large thank you. In terms of recognition, the bank again was included in the American Bankers Association Top 200 Community Banks, and that is based upon financial performance for the 2020 year. We also were given the Reader's Choice Award by the Chino Champion. I don't know how many years we've gotten this, but I'm pleased about that. Always nice to say somebody likes us. We were again ranked as super premier performing by the Finley Reports. Gary Finley analyzes banks and gives 3 measures of top performance, and super premier performing is his highest rating. Again, we're rated 5 stars with Bauer, and we have been rated 5 stars with Bauer for many years. I'm very pleased about that. So in summary, 2020, the bank posted record levels of asset increase, deposits, loans, revenue, net earnings, earnings per share. It really was a tremendous year. Now, you may already be aware. If you're not, you may see a press release. May 20, our board of directors approved a stock dividend, a 20% stock dividend for shareholders of record as of June 17th. So if someone owned 100 shares on June 17th, they would receive a stock dividend of 20 additional shares. So very pleased about that. Nice to get back to be paying some dividends, and some very strong dividends too. So with that, we'll turn and we'll take some questions, but I just want to sum this up by saying this has really been a tremendous year. We have a lot to be thankful for. We have been able to help a number of businesses remain in business, to obtain loans, to continue to employ people, to continue to serve depositors, open new accounts, etc. And for many of our new customers, we've gained over 200 new households just last year. And these are businesses that came to us to do business because they couldn't get a response from their bank. And we were still able to serve their needs. It's a good feeling to know we can do that sort of thing. And even today, where sometimes folks will ask a question like, can I come in without an appointment? Well, sure, come on in. Can I come in and talk about a loan without having an appointment? Sure, of course you can. If you call us, you don't push 1 for new accounts and 2 for loans and 3 for something else. We just answer the phone. So with that, we've got a lot to be thankful for. It's a tremendous year, and now we'll take any questions that folks might have. Okay. Well, now we'll address or entertain any questions that have been submitted either virtually through the meeting website or maybe some questions we've gotten previously. And Carol will be reading those questions.
Yes. Do you foresee inflation increasing? And if so, will the bank begin paying more in interest to depositors?
Okay. So the question regarding inflation, there are a number of causes of inflation. One is you just print more dollars, and so they become less valuable. And then the other is supply chain disruption, which means there is less product available, and so the prices begin to rise. And both of those factors are present today. The level of deficit spending is extremely high, and then supply chain interruption is significant. I think we've all gone to order things and they've been back ordered and we're not sure when they're going to get there and that kind of thing. As a net result, we're seeing significant price increases. Lumber, for example, is up over 400%. Steel is doubled. Copper is up. All of the basic raw materials are higher. Not only that, availability of labor is lower. One would tend to think, wait a minute, this has been kind of a recession. Aren't there a lot of people out of work? Well, there are a lot of people out of work. However, because of the premium being paid for unemployment insurance, folks are making as much or more on unemployment than they are working, and so they're not willing to come back into the workforce. That, plus the fact that many other workers decided this was a good time to retire, and so they don't plan on rejoining the workforce. And so our workforce has contracted during this recession. And so even though there are a lot of people who aren't working, there are less people looking for work. So bottom line is inflation, yes. I absolutely think that we will begin to see inflation. And I think that the question was pointed at is, will interest rates begin to move up on deposits? And the answer is yes. Banking looks at a cost of funds versus availability on loans and then prices the margin in between. So as interest rates move higher, deposit rates move higher, loan rates move higher, etc. Of course, if you're borrowing, that's not much fun, but if you're depositing, that's pretty good.
Thank you. Next question. If I buy more stock now, will I be entitled to receive the stock dividend?
Okay. So I mentioned earlier that our board of directors has approved a 20% stock dividend to shareholders of record as of June 17, and payable on July the 6th. So what that means is we'll run a report on June the 17th, and everyone who owns shares on that day will receive a 20% stock dividend. So if on the 17th someone were to own 100 shares, they would be given an additional 20 shares as a dividend. Now those shares are not restricted in any way. You can keep them for future investment, or you can sell them and take the cash. They're not restricted. You can trade them any way you like.
Okay. One more question. Will the bank be opening more branches?
Good question. The banking industry is contracting. Branches are very expensive. And, when I started in the banking business, we had these palace branches. They were 30,000 square feet and 30-foot ceilings, and, they really were beautiful. They're very expensive. And today, more banking is being done electronically. It's your phone that is allowing you to do the transactions. So the quick answer is yes. Our bank continues to grow and expand, and we will continue to move into local markets that we believe we can serve that community. But our branch sizes will be smaller. They won't look like our Chino branch in the future. They'll be more like 1,500 square feet, 2,000 square feet, something like that. A little more compact, a little more efficient.
Thank you. No more questions.
All right. Terrific. Well, thank you very much, Carol. If there are no further questions, I would entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
All right. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of adjourning the meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And any opposed by saying nay? Okay. With that, the annual meeting of shareholders is now adjourned. Thank you for taking the time to attend this meeting, and thank you for all of your continued support for our company.